Forget everything you think you know about cavemen dragging women by the hair. That image, it's almost entirely made up. The real story is stranger, and honestly, more brutal in ways nobody puts in the movies. Here's the thing nobody tells you if you married a woman from 20,000 years ago. There's a real chance she'd be a better hunter than you. Not a metaphor. Archaeologists dug up a burial in the Andes in 2018 and found a young woman surrounded by hunting weapons, spear points, scrapers, everything a big game hunter would need. For decades, scientists assumed any grave like that belonged to a man. They were wrong, again and again for over a century. So what would it actually be like? Not the Hollywood version. The real one, the food, the danger, the marriage itself, the way she'd see you, and the one thing that would probably kill one of you before you turned 40. Stay with me, because the ending of this story is not what you expect. Let's set the scene. You wake up. There's no bed, there's a pile of hides over packed earth, maybe lined with dry grass for insulation, inside a shelter made of mammoth bone and stretched skin, or maybe just a shallow cave mouth blocked with branches. It's cold, it's always cold, because we're talking somewhere in the last ice age. Roughly 20,000 to 30,000 years ago. In what's now France, or Russia, or Siberia. Your wife is already awake. In fact, she's been awake for a while, and she's not doing anything you'd recognize as morning routine. She's checking the fire. That fire has not gone out in months, maybe years, because relighting one from scratch with a fire drill or flint strike is exhausting and unreliable. Keeping it alive is a full-time, life or death job, and in most reconstructed Paleolithic households, that job belonged to women. Now here's where it gets interesting. You'd assume she spends her day gathering berries while you go kill something big. That's the textbook version, man the hunter, woman the gatherer, and it's been taught since the 1960s. But that Andes burial wasn't a one-off. When researchers reanalyzed 27 burial sites across the Americas with hunting tools, they found that close to half of the big game hunters were biologically female. Half. So on any given morning, there's a real chance your wife straps on the same gear you do and walks out to track a horse herd or corner a young mammoth that's separated from its group. You're not the provider. You're a partner in something that will probably try to kill you both before lunch. Picture this. You're crouched behind a ridge of frozen grass. Your wife is 15 feet to your left, completely still, watching a small herd of reindeer move along a river valley below. Neither of you is talking. You don't need to. You've hunted together so many times that a tilt of the head means wait, and a flat hand means now. This is not a romantic detail I'm inventing for effect. Cooperative pair hunting is one of the leading theories for why Paleolithic humans could take down animals 5 times their size with nothing but sharpened stone and wood. One person alone, even an extremely skilled one, rarely brings down a bison. 2 people, moving as a unit, anticipating each other without speaking, that's a survival technology in itself. And here's the twist. Most people don't expect this kind of partnership. Wasn't built on romance the way we understand it. Marriage, in the sense of a chosen, exclusive, lifelong bond between 2 people who fell for each other, that idea barely existed yet. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer groups, the closest living analog we have to Ice Age life, consistently find that pairings were often arranged through kinship networks, alliances between bands, or simple practical necessity. Love, when it happened, usually grew after the fact, not before it. So your wife didn't marry you because you were charming. She married you, or was matched with you, because your survival and hers were now mathematically linked. Every calorie you bring in matters. Every mistake you make in a hunt could mean she eats less this week. That's not cold. That's just what marriage actually meant. Chashed 2. Now let's talk about dinner, because this is where the fantasy completely falls apart. You did not eat 3 meals a day. You did not eat at consistent times. Some weeks you and your wife would gorge on fresh meat after a successful hunt, eating far more in one sitting than you'd eat in a normal day today, simply because there was no refrigeration and meat spoils fast. other weeks, and this happened often. Especially in winter, you'd eat almost nothing. Studies of skeletal remains from this period show clear stress lines in tooth enamel, evidence of repeated seasons of near starvation, especially among children. Here's a fact that surprises almost everyone: the average Ice Age human, when food was available, was probably healthier and more physically capable than the average person today. Skeletal analysis shows bone density and muscle attachment points consistent with extreme, daily physical effort comparable to elite modern athletes. But healthier when fed and consistently fed are two very different things. Famine wasn't an occasional disaster. It was a recurring guest in the household, so your wife's real daily obsession wasn't romance, or status, or any of the things marriage gets associated with now. It was margin. How much food is stored? How many days until the group needs to move camp to follow migrating herds? Whether the children are getting enough fat, which was more valuable than meat itself, because fat carries far more usable energy and was desperately scarce. This is also where her actual power in the household becomes obvious. Plant foods, nuts, tubers, and small game that women gathered and trapped are now estimated by some researchers to have provided over half of the calories in many hunter-gatherer diets, sometimes well over half. The big hunt gets all the glory in our imagination. The unglamorous daily gathering is what actually kept people alive between hunts. If you married her, you married the person managing the actual survival math of your household, whether the campfire stories gave her credit for it or not. Let's talk about the thing nobody wants to say out loud. One of you is very likely to watch the other die young, and probably from something we'd consider treatable today. Average life expectancy at birth in the Upper Paleolithic is often quoted around the high 20s to low 30s, but that number is misleading. It's dragged down hard by brutal infant and child mortality. If you and your wife both survived past age 15, your realistic chances of reaching your 40s or 50s were genuinely decent. The danger wasn't really aging. It was childbirth, infection, and violence. Childbirth in particular was a leading cause of death for women in this period, and skeletal evidence backs this up: pelvic trauma, healed and unhealed fractures, consistent with difficult births, found across multiple Paleolithic sites. There was no germ theory, no antibiotics, no safe way to handle a breech birth or hemorrhage. If your wife became pregnant, and she likely would, repeatedly, since contraception as we know it didn't exist, every single birth carried a real chance of being her last. And then there's violence. Skeletal remains from this era show a disturbing rate of blunt and sharp trauma. Some clearly from animal attacks, but a significant portion clearly inflicted by other humans. Embedded projectile points in ribs, peri-fractures on forearms, consistent with someone raising an arm to block a blow. Conflict between bands over hunting territory or resources wasn't rare. If you went out hunting and didn't come back on schedule, your wife wasn't imagining the worst-case scenario. She was calculating it because she'd seen it happen to other women in her group. This is the part of marrying a prehistoric woman that the thumbnail version of this story never shows you. It's not adventure. It's a relationship built entirely around shared risk, where love, if it existed at all, was inseparable from fear. So here's the real question. If she could see modern use soft hands, supermarket food, central heating, what would she actually think? Probably not admiration. Most researchers who study hunter-gatherer skill development point out that tracking, tool-making, fire management, and hide processing were skills built over a literal lifetime. Starting in early childhood, a modern adult dropped into that world wouldn't be impressive. You'd be a liability. You wouldn't know which plants were food and which were poison and looked nearly identical. You wouldn't know how to read which way wind was shifting before approaching prey. You'd burn calories. You wouldn't earn them. But here's the inversion. The part that flips this whole story on its head. She'd also see something you take completely for granted, and it would probably stun her more than anything else. You don't bury a third of your children. You don't watch women die in childbirth as a routine, expected outcome. You have food on a schedule you don't have to gamble for. To her, The unimpressive, soft modern man would be living inside what looks, from her perspective, like a miracle, not because of intelligence or strength, but because of accumulated knowledge. She'd have no framework to even imagine medicine. Agriculture, writing, all of it stacked invisibly underneath your unremarkable daily life. That's the real twist of this whole thought experiment. We picture going back in time as an adventure for us. But the actual gap in fortune isn't in skill, or toughness, or romance. It's in the sheer dumb luck of when you were born. So would your marriage have survived 20,000 years ago? Maybe cooperative pairs who hunted together, who managed food and risk as a team, who built trust through repetition rather than chemistry. Those partnerships were often genuinely strong, just not in the shape we expect love to take. But survival wasn't optional, and tenderness was a luxury squeezed in around the edges of an existence that could end on any ordinary Tuesday from a wolf, a rival band, or a birth that went wrong. Next time someone romanticizes the old ways, remember the Andes hunter buried with her tools, the tooth enamel scars of starvation, the peri fractures on forearms raised in defense. The past wasn't simpler. It was just more honest about how fragile everything actually was. If this changed how you picture the people who came before us, subscribe, because the next story rewrites something else you were taught in school, and it's even stranger than this one.